This is the horrifying story of an entire village that vanished overnight. It's me, and this is the Vanishing Village, in the remote region of northern Canada, known as There is a Native American reserve that sits on the southeastern shore of a small lake named Anjikuni, also spelled Onagaming. It was a small village with around 2,500 inhabitants, most of them belonging to the Cree First Nation. They lived in little more than huts made from mud and reeds on the edge of the lake. Life wasn't easy for these people. They were dirt poor and struggled to grow food in the harsh conditions. So many of them left to try their luck elsewhere, but many stayed behind, including an old woman named Sam Post. She lived in a small hut in the village with her 2 grandchildren and a friend of hers named Johnny. One evening they were playing cards by the light of a kerosene lamp, when suddenly a blood-colored light filled the room. At first they assumed it was a reflection from the nearby lake, but when they looked outside, they saw nothing. Then they heard a loud humming noise coming from outside. Thinking it might be a car, they went out to investigate, but when they stepped outside, they noticed something strange. There was a thick fog all around them, and it was hard to see more than a few feet in front of them. The hairs on the back of their necks stood up, and a shiver ran down their spines. The 3 of them decided to go back inside and lock the door. They tried to make the best of it and went back to playing cards, when suddenly a large shape loomed outside. The 3 of them screamed in terror as they watched it move closer. They hid under the bed and pulled the blankets over their heads, and when they peeked out from under the covers, the shape was gone. Then they heard heavy footsteps coming toward the door. They began to pound on the walls, and the shaking grew more and more violent until the whole house began to shake. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. When they cautiously opened the door, they saw that the fog had vanished and everything was still and silent. The next morning, Sam Post emerged from her house to find a giant white mist covering the lake. She couldn't see more than a few feet in front of her, and she couldn't hear any birds or animals. It was completely silent. As she walked toward the shore, she noticed that the mist parted just enough to reveal the footprints of hundreds of people, but they were too large to belong to any human. Her friends and neighbors were nowhere to be seen. The entire village was deserted. Terrified, she fled into the forest and walked for days until she came across a railway, where she eventually found help and told them what had happened. A search party was sent back to the village to find anyone who might have survived, but they found no one. The houses were completely empty, as if everyone had vanished into thin air. There was no sign of a struggle or any kind of disaster. All of the food was still there. The dishes were clean. The beds were neatly made. It was as if the villagers had just gotten up one morning and decided to move somewhere else. But there were no signs of migration elsewhere. Everyone had simply vanished without a trace. To this day, no one knows what happened to the people of Lake Anjikuni. Some say they were all taken by aliens, while others believe it was some kind of supernatural event. Some think that perhaps they were so desperate to leave their poverty-stricken village that they all left together in the middle of the night. But this doesn't explain why there was a giant footprint in the mud, or why there was blood-colored light seen the night before. There have been many similar cases throughout history of entire villages that have seemingly vanished, like the dozens of cases of Native American villages that were completely wiped out during the night, only to be discovered the next morning with not a single soul left inside. Some of these cases can be explained by things like disease outbreaks, wars with neighboring tribes, or simply mass migrations, but others remain unsolved to this day. So what do you think happened to the people of Lake Anjikuni? Was it aliens, ghosts, a mass migration, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.